in Mago Reddit. Today's story is...
My mother thought she could steal my wedding fund until I found her darkest secret and projected it in front of the whole family at the birthday party. I always knew that my mother, Julia, had a talent for putting other people before me, but I never imagined that this would cost me all my wedding fund and what little patience I had left. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. I didn't think she could sink so low. So what happens now? Well, now I find myself without any money for my wedding, and with lots of unanswered questions. My stepfather, Greg, came into our lives when I was 19. Until then, my relationship with my mother had been pretty normal. She was affectionate, she would take me to school, we would have deep conversations over coffee, and she was always willing to help me with any problem. But as soon as Greg appeared, it was as if my mother had fallen into a trance. I don't know if it was true love or simply a desperate need to have a man by her side, but suddenly I took a back seat, as did everything else. Greg wasn't exactly someone you would get along with easily. He had a daughter from a previous marriage, Kayla, who was a year older than me. Let's just say he wasn't the nicest person in the world. Despite that, I tried to get along with her. However, when Greg decided that I should leave because he couldn't stand a spoiled brat like me and thought I would be a bad influence on his precious Kayla, my mother decided to let me go. I was 20 years old, and Greg made it very clear that if I didn't leave, he would. So my mother, blinded by her love, told me that I should pack my things and go live with my boyfriend, David. Obviously, it broke my heart to see my mother choose her new husband over her own daughter, her own flesh and blood. I tried to look on the bright side and convinced myself that maybe it was the right time to take the next step in my life. But that was just the beginning, because after that, everything changed with my mother. She would occasionally call me, but it was clear that she wasn't really present. She would talk about Greg's work, Kayla's problems, or whatever was going on in their lives. I can't remember the last time she asked about me or my stuff. Fast forward to the present. I'm 25 and about to marry David. Yes, my long-term boyfriend is now my fiancé. This is supposed to be the happiest moment of my life, right? Well, it could have been. Except for one small problem. No, rather, one big problem. I had been counting on the wedding fund that my father left me. It was supposed to cover most of the expenses. My father passed away when I was young and left that money so that, when the time came, I wouldn't have to worry about the expenses. It was enough for a decent wedding. Nothing extravagant, just a nice celebration with family and friends. My fiancé and I had been saving for the honeymoon, and we had already paid a considerable deposit that was non-refundable. I didn't mind making some sacrifices to make sure the honeymoon was perfect, but I always trusted that the wedding fund would be enough for the celebration. But it wasn't, because there was no fund. My mother, in her infinite wisdom, decided to use all the wedding money to buy her beloved stepdaughter, Kayla, a dream house, all to impress Greg. I sent my mom a message about the wedding fund, telling her that I needed it to start planning the celebration. Do you know what she replied? Oh, I forgot to tell you, but I used the fund recently to buy Kayla a house. I hope you understand. I had to read it twice just to make sure it was real. This woman, my mother, spent my money, the last bit of my father's legacy, to buy my half-sister her dream house. To make matters worse, Kayla doesn't even try to hide it. She shows it off on all her social networks, rubbing it in my face every chance she gets. And to top it all off, my mother now acts as if she were the victim in this situation. She wants to talk, she wants us to work things out. She says we have to discuss the wedding, that she has an idea to fix this. But she can't even say what it is. How can I sit down with her after all this and act as if she hadn't completely ruined my wedding plans? She's asked me to go to my stepsister's housewarming party so we can look for a solution, but the only solution I can see here is for her to give me the money back. I don't know what to do because I was counting on that money to pay for the wedding and now it's gone, so I think I should at least sit down and listen to what her proposal is. It's not that I haven't thought about suing her, I probably will, but I don't have time to wait for that trial until I get a verdict. So I don't know, what do you think? Addition. No, the money my father left me for the wedding isn't much. When my mother helped buy the house for Kayla, she probably only used that money for the down payment. It's part of the money my father left for my studies and for my wedding. I had already used the first part when I went to university, and I was planning to use the rest now. Update 1. I'm a fool. A complete, utter fool for thinking a party could have made any difference. Honestly, I don't know what delusion I was living in to think that my mother, who intentionally took my wedding fund to buy my half-sister a house, just to please my stepfather, would really want to help me. That was my first mistake. Mistake number 2. Thinking that she had a real plan to fix this. Because her brilliant idea to save my dream wedding was, why don't you get married in the backyard with just the family? Why do you need a big wedding? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because she was the one who put the idea of a fairy tale wedding in my head since I was 10 years old. Maybe because she was the one who showed me bridal magazine after magazine and made me dream of a big day full of love, laughter, and something beautiful. But now that it's my turn, suddenly I don't need a beautiful wedding anymore. It's the hypocrisy of it all that makes me want to scream. And to be clear, it was never about a ridiculously extravagant wedding. It was just supposed to be special. But apparently, now that he's diverted my money to Kayla's dream house, all I deserve is a quick wedding in the backyard with Greg's family, and is convenient forgetting that I don't even have a budget for a dress, catering, or anything anymore. Reducing it to a wedding in the backyard of a house that hasn't been cleaned in 20 years and that could be full of animals that call it home is not my dream at all. And Greg had to add his 2 cents of misery to the night. This man, who has never contributed anything positive to my life, spent the whole night making passive-aggressive comments to me, talking about how spoiled I must be for expecting my mother to pay for my wedding when I am a grown woman with a job. My mother just bought her stepdaughter a house. What could be more spoiled than that? Besides, I didn't expect her to pay out of her own pocket. I expected her to give me the money my father left me. You know, the money I had no right to touch, but she had no problem using to spoil Kayla. I was already in such a bad mood that I didn't even bother to reply, so I just ignored him. But then Kayla showed up. Oh my goodness, she didn't just show off the house all night. No. She actually approached me to talk about when we should meet to discuss my wedding arrangements. I looked at her as if she'd grown 2 heads. Why on earth would I talk to her about my wedding plans, especially when she's the exact reason I might not even have a wedding? And just when I thought this hellish night couldn't get any worse, Kayla dropped another bombshell. Your mom said I could be a bridesmaid at your wedding? Sorry, what? Honestly, I thought I had heard wrong. My mother, in her infinite wisdom, thought that the perfect way to fix this situation was to suggest that Kayla, her precious, unworthy, and thieving stepdaughter, be my maid of honor. No, she made everything worse. This woman must really hate me. There's no other explanation for that. So I went straight to my mother. I don't even remember what I said to her at first, but it must have been something barely coherent, because she immediately tried to soften it with some excuse about how Kayla is the only sister figure you have, and how she just assumed she would want to be by my side on my big day. She couldn't see me, but I'm sure it looked like smoke was coming out of my ears. I took it all out on my mom, how she was sick of her always choosing her new family over me, how she was a complete lunatic if she thought I would accept this, and how she had the audacity to act like she was doing this out of love, when it was clearly manipulation. Then I turned on Kayla and took my anger out on her too. I told her she was crazy if she really thought I would make her my bridesmaid. I told her she was only interested in the role because she loves the attention, not because she really cared about me. And guess what? Kayla had the nerve to act like I was the one ruining everything. She started yelling about how I would regret speaking to her like that, and then, in the most dramatic move of the night, she pointed to the door and told me to get the hell out of there. So here I am, sitting, writing this, while I try to figure out what the hell just happened. I don't even know if I crossed the line. I just exploded. All those years of being pushed aside just came flooding back. But now, I'm back to square one. My mother clearly isn't going to help me. I have no money for the wedding and no idea how I'm going to fix this mess. What the hell do I do about my wedding now? Because right now, I feel like I have nothing left. Update 2. So I'm back, and yes, with another update. So why don't we get straight to the point? And it's going to be an intense update, so grab some popcorn and something to drink, because you're going to need it. I should have known that losing my temper at that party wouldn't do me any good, because if it were up to my dearest stepsister, I would never get married. In fact, I wouldn't even have a boyfriend, let alone a fiancé. I should have known that Kayla wouldn't accept this lack of respect and move on with her life. but trying to ruin my relationship, that was a low blow, even for her. And believe me, her level of lowness was already at rock bottom. She was probably in hell before that, so I don't know what comes next. After the disastrous party, I did what was best for my sanity. I ignored my half-sister and my mother. Their calls, their messages, the absolute nerve of trying to manipulate me emotionally, saying they would never forgive me for what I did. I didn't want to know anything about that circus or see the monkeys. I kept completely silent for a whole week, and honestly, I hoped they would get bored and go torment someone else. But life isn't that easy, is it? One day, I came home from work, ready to collapse on the sofa and pretend that my life was normal for 5 seconds. Instead, I found my fiancé sitting there, with a serious expression and a pile of photos in his hand. That kind of seriousness that instantly turns your stomach, you know? I barely had time to say hello before he handed them over to me, and, my God, I felt like the world was turning upside down. They were photos of me kissing another man. Obviously, I have never done that, but when I saw them, I had an out-of-body experience because to anyone, they looked real. At that moment, seeing David's serious face, I thought my relationship was over. Honestly, I felt nauseous. My first instinct was to start stammering, trying to explain that I would never cheat on him and that this was crazy. But before I could say 2 words, my fiancé raised his hand to stop me. And then he said, "Honey, I know they're fake." Never in my life had I felt such an intense mixture of relief and anger. Relief, because my fiancé isn't an idiot, and he really trusts me and knows exactly who did this. But anger because, seriously, was this the tactic now? That she was trying to literally fabricate an infidelity scandal? I could hardly get a word in edgewise before David started talking about how this was all getting out of hand. How? What would be next? Going after my job? That's when I knew that simply ignoring them wouldn't be enough. David was right. This was beyond ridiculous, and it was affecting my life, my happiness, my peace of mind. I couldn't just sit back and hope they'd get bored, so I did something unexpected. I went to Kayla's house. Not to fight, not to shout, not to throw the edited photos in their faces. I went to apologize. Yes, that's right. Before you start questioning my sanity, hear me out. It wasn't a real apology, it was a performance. It wasn't like I was going to win an Oscar with that apology, but it was good enough for someone with Kayla's intelligence to believe it. I went in looking all embarrassed and contrite and told her she was right, that I shouldn't have shouted at her, that I was too harsh, that I let my emotions get the better of me. My mother was there too, and I saw the look of self-satisfaction on their faces. It took all my self-control not to shout at them. My mother, always so deluded, began to ramble on about how the family this and the family that, how this was my chance to make amends, blah, blah, blah. The thing is, my stepsister lived for this. She enjoyed it, thinking she'd won, that I'd been put in my place, that I'd finally learned my lesson. Oh dear, you have no idea what's coming your way. For the last week, I've been playing the part of the repentant and obedient daughter. Mom and Kayla have been so generous in allowing me back into their conversations, believing they have me eating out of the palm of their hands. And today I know my plan is working. Why? Because I got a call from Kayla. She invited me, in the most condescending way possible, to help organize her next birthday party. And by help, I mean she assigned me the role of her personal errand girl, making me run back and forth to satisfy her ridiculous whims. I could hear the arrogance in her voice. She thought she was humiliating me, putting me in my place. But the only place she's put me is in the most strategic place for my revenge. What she didn't know was that she was setting herself up for her own destruction. I wasn't the only one with secrets. She was just waiting for the perfect opportunity to reveal the secret I have about them. And when I reveal it, well, let's just say she won't be the one organizing parties anymore. I'm being vindictive, maybe. Do they deserve it? Absolutely. It'll be a great revenge, you can bet on it. The secret, well, they'll find out soon enough, and so will the rest of the world. Hopefully, the next update will be the grand finale. Update 3. I'm back with an update, and everything has gone horribly wrong. A total disaster, if you want to call it that. I can see my plan unraveling bit by bit. Alright, take a deep breath. Let me backtrack a little, because writing here seems to be the only thing stopping me from throwing my phone against the wall. Today is the day of Kayla's birthday party. The party that, if everything had gone as planned, would have been her last moment of glory before crashing and burning. But right now, it's about to start in half an hour, and my master plan is hanging by a thread. Over the last few weeks, I've played my part perfectly, acting like the dutiful, helpful girl Kayla always wanted. And as I dealt with her ridiculous demands, trust me, they were absurd. I've slowly lost my sanity. She made me drive all over the city to get her a designer dress, just to throw a tantrum, because it looked different in person. She made me redo the seating plan 116 times, just to make sure certain people were uncomfortable in strategic locations. And because that wasn't enough, she insisted on a very specific brand of champagne that wasn't even available, so we had to find it on the black market for a small fee. I did everything because I needed one thing, and that was my mother's introduction. Now, why was this introduction so important, you may ask? It was my key, the stage for the big reveal, the moment when everything I had been planning would finally fall on Kayla. But there was a problem. My mother, always so controlling, wouldn't let me near it. She told me she would take care of it and that I should focus on other things. And, well, that made me totally panic. Why? How am I supposed to exchange it for the real presentation I prepared, the one that reveals the big secret, if I can't even get access to it? All right, before we go any further, I know I've been hinting at this secret for a while. You might be thinking, is it really that important? Trust me, it is. And for those of you who don't believe me about its importance, here it is. When I falsely apologized to my mother and Kayla, I was playing the long game, but I wasn't expecting the universe to give me something even juicier. When I was leaving that day, I asked my mother for her phone because mine was dead and I needed to order an Uber. She was distracted by something Kayla was saying and she handed it to me without thinking. And then I saw it. A message appeared. It was a flirty message, a bit racy, and definitely not from my stepfather. I tapped the notification and nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. My plan had been to simply show how my half-sister's house had been bought with my wedding money, but what karma delivered to me was much better. The messages were not just flirtatious, they were explicit. And they weren't from just anyone. They were specifically from... Wait, I can't say the name yet. Not like that. Because when I reveal it, I need you to feel what I felt at that moment. To put it in perspective, I almost fainted. But that's how excited I was. Before I could read anymore, I started taking screenshots of what I could and sending them to myself. My mom suddenly asked me if I was finished, so I had to erase all evidence of my intrusion and do what I was going to do with her phone. I quickly ordered the Uber, gave her back the phone, and acted as if nothing had happened. But inside, my brain was short-circuiting. When I got home, I started reading the screenshots. This wasn't just a slip-up, it was a full-scale lie for an entire month. And with whom? That was the absolutely insane part. There was my ammunition. I knew exactly what I was going to do. Once Kayla asked me to help her with her birthday party, and I found out that my mother had prepared a slideshow of her sweet moments. At this point, I felt bad for my mother, because preparing a slideshow of Kayla's sweet moments couldn't have been easy. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. But I just had to swap it for the special one I had prepared. Easy, right? Wrong. Due to my mother's obsessive control over the presentation, I didn't even go near it. What do I do now? I'm on the verge of a nervous breakdown. My master plan is hanging by a thread and the chance of seeing Kayla crumble is slipping away. I have very little time to change the presentations, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm writing this because I'm walking the walls. I could do it at another time, but the impact wouldn't be the same. I'd like to see her squirm when everyone sees this. I know I haven't revealed some of what I read in the messages yet, but that's because there's still a tiny chance the plan will be carried out, and I don't want to ruin it if anyone in my family, like my mother or my stepsister, read this. In any case, in a few hours I'll probably make a new update, either because I succeeded or because I couldn't carry out my revenge. Update 4. I know it's been a while and I left you hanging at the worst possible moment, didn't I? But the hours after the party and this last week have been good. Now you'll understand. But I know what you really want to know. What happened at Kayla's birthday party? So you remember my master plan to get back at my mother and Kayla, right? Well, it turns out it didn't fail. Because here's what happened. Luckily at the party, my mother left the presentation computer alone for a moment, which I took advantage of to swap the presentations. It was still difficult, and I was suffering until the last moment because my mother took care of that computer as if it were made of gold. And yes, everything went up in flames at that party for those involved. The house was full, and when I say the house, I mean that house. Yes, the one my mother bought for Kayla with my wedding fund. The guest list was nauseating. Our whole family, Kayla's fake friends who think they're influencers, her boyfriend, my mother's group of friends who only know how to drink wine and let her get away with anything, and my stepfather's whole family. My mother was floating around like the perfect stepmother of the year, saying how much Kayla deserved the best, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, I was there, drinking peacefully, savoring every minute. When you know that everything is about to blow up, you feel a little special. And then it happened. My mother gave her little speech full of lies and false flattery, while my stepfather looked at her as if she were the moon herself. Kayla absorbed the attention like the narcissist she is. And then, the moment I had been waiting for. The lights dimmed, the projector came on, and the first slide appeared. But instead of a compilation of Kayla's sweetest moments, which we will never know what they are, which intrigues me, what appeared was irrefutable proof of my mother's absolute baseness. Screenshots with explicit messages from my mother and Kayla's boyfriend. That was the secret. Kayla's cheating, disgusting, hypocritical boyfriend was my mother's dirty secret. And it wasn't just flirtatious messages. The messages detailed everything, including a kiss they shared, and my mother's desperate insinuations that she wanted more. It turns out that Kayla's boyfriend had been hesitating, probably afraid of being found out, or my mother would have already gone further with him. If you've ever seen the movie Where's the Pilot, you can imagine how chaotic the birthday party was. Kayla's face went through all the stages of grief in 10 seconds. I thought she was having a stroke or something, because she was contorting her face in a weird way. The lips shouldn't move like that. Then, without saying a word, she turned to her boyfriend and slapped him so hard that I swear it made him keep time to the music. But the best part, when my mother tried to calm her down, Kayla turned on her, shouting something at her that, legally, I can't repeat if I don't want to be locked up in a prison with no light, and she pushed her so hard that my mother almost fell to the floor. And my mother, who was used to being adored by her beautiful stepdaughter, was horrified. Then she turned to my stepfather, probably hoping for support. Big, sweet mistake. Greg was furious. He got up, grabbed my mother by the arm, and in front of everyone, threw her out of the house. And to make things even worse for her, he announced right then and there that he was going to file for divorce. The whole house was in chaos, with people shouting, arguing, fighting, and venting. Even Kayla's friends were whispering in the corner and recording what was happening. We will probably see it soon on one of their social networks. And the icing on the cake? She's now homeless and penniless. And you might be wondering how, since she had the house that made me leave years ago because of Greg, right? Well, it turns out that, in a moment of absolute stupidity, my mother transferred the title of the house to my stepfather to show him her loyalty or trust or whatever nonsense she came up with. Guess what? She no longer has a house. When it all happened, she came running to my door, but I wasn't there. But I know why she's left me a million messages begging for help. They have no idea that it was me who switched the introductions. From what I last heard, my mother is living in a cheap motel with a few dollars in her pocket, and no one is willing to help her after seeing how she betrayed the two people closest to her. Do I care? Not even a little. I was nervous and afraid that this wouldn't happen, but it did, and it was better than I had planned. And for now, I'm calm, because unless my mother finds out about this, and I don't see her as the kind of person who reads Reddit, she'll never find out. And if she does, it's too late. I've already got what I was looking for. And as if that weren't enough, she's still going to be sued for stealing the money. She won't get away with that so easily. I was just looking for a way to secure the funds to pay for my wedding first, because I know that even if we sue, there's no way she'll get the money back in time. Maybe it'll be a belated wedding gift. The solution was to talk to my fiancé's parents, and they have agreed to pay for it. Even so, we hope to pay them back when we get the money from my mother. Update 5. I hope you are ready for this latest update, which contains over a year's worth of gossip about my life. I am now married, and we have just had a wonderful honeymoon. We have paid back my in-laws every penny. I have nothing relevant to mention about the wedding, because the most interesting thing was seeing one of my husband's uncles choking on an olive, and then another relative helping him get it out. Yes, that was the most exciting part of a wedding. That was the most normal thing in the world. Nothing extravagant, nothing worth mentioning, and without the presence of my ex-stepfather, ex-stepsister, and ex-mother. Speaking of my mother, she was given the toughest divorce ever, like the slap Kayla gave her ex-boyfriend. I can still hear in my head how hard that blow was. Have you seen any videos of extreme blows in sports? Well, it was something like that. A pity that nobody recorded it, as far as I know. I haven't seen any posts from Kayla's friends either. Another real loss. With my stepfather using the presentation as evidence in the divorce trial, she managed to get everything, including the house that belonged to my mother, the same one that she foolishly signed in Greg's name. After the party, she tried several times to contact me and visit my house so that we could be together as a family during this difficult time, but after receiving my lawsuit, she basically stopped. Thanks to that, I was able to pay my in-laws back for the wedding, because I got back every last dollar that my mother stole for Kayla's house. Speaking of Kayla, she also lost the house, because my stupid mother, in her eagerness to spoil her, not only gave her the money for the down payment, but was also helping her with the mortgage. Well, that's not happening anymore, and she had to put the house up for sale to avoid ending up with a black hole of debt. I even know that Greg and Kayla aren't talking to each other, because they're both blaming each other for what their respective partners did with the other's partner. The most entertaining thing about all this is that my mother, apart from the lawsuit, which I know she is not at all happy about, is not angry with me for all this, because until now she has not found out that I was the one who made the presentation. I have debated telling her, but I think I will save it for the future. Nothing like whispering in her ear, it was me who made the presentation, at the worst possible moment. I'll have to live with the intrigue of what the original presentation was, the one about Kayla's sweet moments, but it's a small price to pay for having had that ace up my sleeve.